Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today I will be reviewing Boosh, The Company by K.J. Parker. So this is my fourth Parker novel that I've read, and I've read two of his novellas. So it's my sixth Parker work in total. And this was actually my patron wheel pick for February. As I've said before, my patrons all get to put a book on my wheel, and every other month I spin it. And whatever goes on there is what I read. And ironically, this was not Zara who read this with me. This was not Zara's pick, but in fact, Sharon, one of Sharon's picks on the wheel. And, everyone's disappointed because literally no one wanted me to read this but me and Sharon and then Zara. And I am so glad that I got to read this. I tore through this book, and this book was so freaking good. This book solidifies for me K.J. Parker as just a master of his craft. So, without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. Let's talk about The Company. So, The Company is actually a multi-POV work as opposed to the real single POV works like The Folding Knife is really just Basso's, it's only Basso's perspective. Maybe there's like one other one. And then The Hammer is mostly Gignemai's perspective, but it does have other POVs, but it's primarily Gignemai. And then Purple and Black is epistolary, so it's dual POV, and then there's Blue and Gold, which is entirely Salininus's POV. And so this, and then Sharps, which is the only other multi-POV one of his that I've read, and I did not super enjoy Sharps. It was my second Parker. I would be surprised to see if I feel the same way about Sharps if I went back and reread it. And even though this is a multi-POV, there really is a primary one. There's a primary one, and then a secondary one, and then there's a bunch of tertiary ones. And the primary one is General Cunesson, because this book is about these 6 friends who all grew up in kind of the same small farming town that was just on the edge of this war. And Cunesson lost his family farm because of the war, and one of his other friends' families purchased it. And so all 6 of these boys, they went and they signed up to kind of get away from their farm lives or to have a different life than what they were going to have in this town. And they all joined up in the military, and 4 of them left when their tour was over. 1 of them died, and then Cunesson continued on for another 7 years. And he is finally finished with the military, and he's come back to his hometown to find the 4 survivors and tell them that he essentially has the deed to a derelict island that the government doesn't want anymore, and they're going to move there and start their own farm / ideal republic. And that's the conceit, and that's theoretically what it's about. And yeah, they do go to the island, but that is not actually what this book is about. Just like Parker's other books, this book is about the characters and about the situations and about holding a mirror up to humankind. And Parker has a very cynical view of humankind. Parker's characters are, if you kind of remove conscience from people, and maybe not even remove conscience, but weaken conscience's hold over your actions to where even if people feel bad about doing the wrong thing, they're still going to do the selfish thing. Parker's characters are very selfish. Let's talk about just General Cunesson himself. This character is terrifying. His single-mindedness for the farm, for a company, because that was their company name. They were known as Linebreakers. It's Cunesson, and then we have the wealthy son of a magistrate, ID, who is the smart one who sees things that kind of other people don't. We have Kude, whose family purchased Cunesson's farm. We've got Muri, who is huge and brilliant, but no one ever, literally everyone talks over him. No one ever listens to anything he says. We have Fly, who is the only one who's married at the start of this book. He kind of left that life behind. And then finally you have Nuktos, who was the kind of original ringleader when they were at the academy, but he's the one who perished during the war. And because they got into so much trouble all the time, they were made line breakers, which means that it was their job to punch through essentially phalanxes with bristling pikes. It was their job to bowl in, roll under the feet or go down and then spring up to kind of just widen the wall of enemy pikes long enough to where the cavalry and the other soldiers could get through. And it was extraordinarily extraordinarily dangerous, but they were extremely good at it. And most Linebreakers didn't survive more than 2 fights, but they survive time and time again, so they have this kind of mythological reputation, this legendary status that's formed around A Company. And so Cunesson, he believes in getting his own farm, he believes in A Company. One of my favorite just lines of narration is, "For the company and don't whine about the cost." It is so brilliant. But some of the decisions that Cunesson makes are just, they are amoral. They are evil, but not in a mustache-twirling, like, supervillain way. The evils that these people commit are so human that they are frightening because you can see yourself reflected in them. They are the petty human evils, and that is scary. Parker books are books that are so incredibly rich with character and development and character arcs while nothing is really happening. Nothing really happens in Parker books, at least the ones that I've read, and that is a lot of people's complaint, is they're extremely slow, but never boring. Even when they're establishing the farm, and it deals with, Parker always has something like some specialization in everything, like Folding Knife deals with banking and politics. Hammer deals with kind of small-scale manufacturing and forge work. Sharps is all about fencing. And then this one is about what it takes to run a farm. Like, you need people. Are you gonna die on the island? You need wives. You need people to work the farm. It can't just be the 5 of you to work that entire island. You gotta bring people with you. Well, who do you bring? Do you give them stock in the island? Are you above them? Are they below you? What is the status? How are you going to get supplies until you can make your own? All of this logistical stuff that goes in there. And while we get these scenes of them working the farm, there is, as always with Parker, he has a very tongue-in-cheek kind of writing style. It's very clever and witty, and he's clearly a brilliant man. But while all this is going on, and they're literally just trying to establish this colony, there's just this dark cloud of foreboding and ominous doom that just hangs over the proceedings, and you're wondering where it's all going to go wrong. And each chapter begins with a flashback to either the war or during the war for people who were non-combatants. And these flashbacks serve as kind of vignettes into these characters, and some of these are just really brilliant short stories in and of themselves. There is one that completely flips the script on you in the way it's written. It is written in this way that you would expect what is going on to be written, and then it becomes, without any fanfare, a horror story. And it is so well done. I had to read it again just to make sure that I knew what was happening, and then it terrified me, and I thought about it for days, and I'm still thinking about it. Zara and I talk about this, is that Parker characters sit with us long after the book is gone, and I'm still thinking about Cunesson and the rest of the crew, but certainly Cunesson, because we spend the most time with him. Some of these just small interactions just feel they're just terrifying, even though they're small and they're quiet, and there's no, like, horror to speak of. There's not things that should scare you, but the stakes and the way people are talking and the way their actions are described, contrasting how they were earlier, it is absolutely brilliant to watch these 5 friends interact as they try to get this up and running. So this is a story about many things. The back of the book tells you that it's about them starting the island and, someone's got a secret that's gonna break everything apart. The book is not about that. The book is about, they go to this island, but the book is about the relationship between these characters and the people they bring with them and the outside world. It is about secrets. It is about shared experiences. It is about wanting more from life than what you were given, and then regretting it when your dream does not really kind of look like what you wanted it to look like. It is about loyalty, and I love books that explore loyalty. It's one of my favorite themes in books, and this explores not only the good side of loyalty, but also that dark, that black side of loyalty, where why are you loyal to this particular person, or what breeds that loyalty? Is it coming from an honorable place, a good place, or are you being loyal for reasons that are not good reasons? And how far will that loyalty take you? What can people do to earn or lose loyalty? And just like just like the world has kind of mythologized A Company's time in the war, like how much of these five, how much of their friendship is a result of that mythologicalization of that time when they were in the war. How often have you tried to reconnect, those of us who are older, reconnect with the group that you were with, you know, back in high school or even back in college, and you get together and you talk about old times just because that's what you used to do. But do you really have all that much in common anymore? Are you like holding this together by nostalgia? Is nostalgia the only thing holding this friendship together still? And so these relationships are fascinating. The deference that they show to Knesset because he's the general. It is just interesting to watch how the relationships they had during the war kind of bleed over to modern times, because before Knesset shows up out of the blue, none of them had seen it. They live in the same town, and yet none of them had seen each other for 3 years prior. And so as the past begins to unfold, what happened between when they left the war and Knesset left? What happened in those war times before they left? What was their relationship like then? What was their relationship like now? And some of these characters are terrifying. And none of them, this is the first time where you don't really root for any of them, because they're all bad people. None of them are good people doing anything for the right reasons, and they are an unlikable yet absolutely fascinating cast of characters. This is a bleak book with a bleak outlook. This is a bleaker outlook than the other ones, the other Parker books that I've read, and yet it's still fascinating. And I still loved it because Parker doesn't have this air of oppressiveness that it's gloom and doom and everything will be dark forever. Instead, it's just this kind of winking cynicism that is like, hey, look at us. Look at us. What if we didn't act like that? Let these people serve as cautionary tales. Zara is insistent on calling these Parker books grimdark, especially this one. In fact, Zara, who I'm sure we'll have a review of the company up soon also, says that Knesset may be one of the most grim characters that she's read, other than I think she had 1 or 2 in the First Law. And so that's like, what? Okay. But if you like character work, like, this is a fantastic place. Like, if you want a bunch of stuff to happen, no, you don't read it. Like, nothing happens in this book except you watch little vignettes of people trying to farm, and it's about so much more. Parker is brilliant at foreshadowing things that come later. This is in all of his books, but he also is really good at red herrings. He'll show you something that normally would be foreshadowing and you're expecting it to pay off because you saw the foreshadowing. No, that's there to throw you off the trail. He'll kill that thread like that, and you're like, oh, I thought more was going to happen with that. It is just really good. I've talked before, like in my Folding Knife review, about Parker's kind of narrative style where it kind of feels documentary-ish. He has this way of describing a whole scene, but doesn't actually include any dialogue, so a whole scene will pass as if a narrator is describing it rather than you seeing it from the ground level, hearing the arguments. And so what would take several pages takes like 2 paragraphs. I wanted to read an example of what I'm talking about, if it's hard to explain. Because it is hard to explain. So this is just a small sample of what I'm talking about. This was news to the indentured men, some of whom instinctively patted their pockets for loose change, and there was a thoughtful silence before everyone started talking at once. In that case, they said, from now on there'd have to be an armed guard posted next to the jar at all times. They'd have to have a rota. The proposal divided the shareholders into 2 nearly equal factions, those who held that posting just 1 guard was like leaving a fox to guard the chicken run, and that there had to be a minimum of 2 sentries at all times, and those who pointed out that guard duty would mean a reduction in the labor force, and therefore a significant fall in productivity. At some stage, someone suggested that Knesset should be the guard. After all, he didn't work the river. In fact, it was a mystery what he did all day, so why shouldn't he do something useful? And furthermore, if you couldn't trust the general, who could you trust? For some reason, 80 got quite annoyed at that. He'd be interested, he said, to see which of them had the guts to go and tell the hero of Eleanto, the most devastating fighting man on either side of the war, that he was a good-for-nothing layabout. He also undertook to bury the remains once the interview was concluded, assuming enough could be scraped together to be worth burying. They were, he went on, the saddest collection of idiots he'd ever had the bad luck to associate with, and if he heard one more word about guards or seals, someone was going to get a hard smack. That abruptly ended the debate, and nobody said a word for the rest of the day. And it goes on and continues, but that's kind of the thing that I'm talking about that he does. He picks and chooses the scenes that he wants to show you in detail, and then many of them are summarized like this, and yet I don't ever feel like I'm robbed of what happened. He gives you exactly the tenor of what was going on there, and he's just brilliant. He's brilliant. I wish I could talk to him, but he's off the grid. He is not on social media, and I have no idea how to contact him, because I would love to tell him that I love his books, and will you please come and talk to me and Zara about how much we love KJ Parker. So guys, this is a dark, bleak, cynical look at humanity with characters that are so real and so humanly normal and self-serving that it's almost terrifying how evil some decisions can be made. If that sounds like your cup of tea, you should read it. It is a brilliant, brilliant character study. If you like character, like if you really are a character-driven reader, and you like those kinds of characters. If you don't like that type of character, I completely understand, then you should definitely pick up The Company. On the Kingfin approval rating, I give this a superb plus. Easy 5 out of 5 stars. This is my second favorite Parker book that I've read, and I think that is largely just because I love Basso. Basso is amazing and brilliant and has a much more kind of hopeful tone, despite being a cynical Parker work, and I think I just like that kind of more hopeful tone better than things that are bleaker. But if not for Basso, I think this would be my favorite one. This book is so good. I loved it so much. You should check it out, and let me know what you thought. If you have read The Company, please tell me your thoughts as well. Hopefully, me and Zara, and maybe now Klaus, are getting people to pick up more of Parker's works. Guys, that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.